Hello, Dr. Charlop. How are you?
Excellent, excellent. Thanks for having me on your show.
Well, thank you for coming on. I appreciate it. I was intrigued by your title of your book, and it obviously begs the question, why do doctors skip breakfast?
So here's the deal. I worked at a tertiary medical center. I'm a physician, and I worked at a big academic hospital, and I worked with a lot of surgeons and other anesthesiologists. And before the surgery day would start, we'd all hang out and we'd sit around and we'd kind of chit chat and we'd talk about the cases coming up. Sometimes people talk about their kids' soccer practice, the usual
Right.
stuff that comes up when people hang out. But one thing I noticed is almost everybody was drinking coffee, and I love coffee. I drink it all the time. But I noticed that hardly anyone ate breakfast. And these are people like me. We're going into an operating room. We might be there for 8, 10, 12 hours, and almost nobody was eating. And so I realized that this is kind of what people do. I just sort of took it for granted. And then when I wasn't in a medical setting, I'd look around and I noticed that almost everybody was eating breakfast. And they were having donuts and they were having bagels and they were having sugary cereals and all these things. And it made me realize that what we do as healthcare providers, many times we're not doing a good job of communicating with everybody else. And so why doctors skip breakfast is all about how we're able to take control of our own health and fight off aging and fight off and prevent chronic disease through things like diet and supplements and exercise and stuff like that, but especially through diet. And one of the best things to do with diet is daily intermittent fasting.
Okay. So I happen to like breakfast. I tend to skip dinner, actually. But is it specifically the time or is it the types of food that people are eating at breakfast?
So this is evolving science, and it's actually pretty hot off the presses stuff. I mean, this is all just the last couple of years that we've kind of learned about the benefits of intermittent fasting.
Yeah.
And where it really comes from, you could look at animal studies. And if you look at animals, you can put them in all these crazy diets, vegetarian, organic, free
Right.
range, high carb, low carb, whatever, you name it. The only thing that really makes animals live longer, and I mean a lot longer, is if you fast them. I mean, it's breathtaking. Some animals will live 40% longer just by fasting them. And so when when we're talking about skipping breakfast, honestly, you don't need to skip breakfast. You could skip dinner too. I think that that's perfectly fine. The idea is you want to go at least 16 hours most days where you're not eating anything with calories. And I actually talk about this in the book. I say, maybe you're a breakfast person. You love breakfast, or maybe you eat breakfast with your coworkers or your family. It's important to you.
Right.
Do it. Do it. And then see if you get dinner. Maybe have a late lunch at like 3 o'clock and then call it a day there. And that is perfectly fine.
Now, does this apply to everybody or is this just specifically? Because, I mean, people are different. People have different metabolisms. Some people can eat constantly and never gain weight at all. I'm one of those opposite people who just looks at food and puts on weight. So, obviously, I'm very conscious of what I eat, how much I eat. I try. But there's some people that could just eat everything and anything and never put on weight. But you're not specifically referencing weight gain as so much as this is actually prolonging people's life if they fast. Is that what you're saying?
Right. And I'm
Okay.
glad you asked. That was a good question because it turns out that even in these animal studies, the longer lifespan isn't due to eating less calories. There were some animals where they ate the same number of calories they would have eaten or close to it, but they still lived longer. So we think that it has something to do with the timing of eating and insulin levels and blood sugar levels and things like that. It's
Okay.
not just that you're eating fewer calories. It is true, though, that many people that fast will lose weight. They may lose it unintentionally. I'm actually one of those people. I'm kind of on the thin side. So I actually sometimes have to intentionally add food to my diet because if I'm not careful when I fast, I'll end up losing weight. And so for some people, this is a perk. They want to lose weight. When you fast, it's an easy way to do it. For other people like me, it's actually almost a negative because I'm not really trying to lose weight.
Right.
But the magic isn't in the weight loss. The magic is actually in the timing of the food, which is what's so cool about this and what makes it so different than the way we've looked at diets in the past.
Okay. Well, I know there's probably some truth to what you're talking about. Uh, I'm thinking of some of those old Indian gurus that are, probably 100 pounds soaking wet and probably 110 years old and still going. Obviously, in their religious beliefs, they do fasting as part of a regular ritual. So the fasting, aside from the blood sugar and the insulin issues, is there also the issue of just sort of cleansing the body, just getting rid of everything that you've put in over the last, 15 hours or whatever? Is there some truth to that as well?
Well, it's interesting. So we know it works, and now we're kind of trying to go back and figure out, well, why does it work? And so there's all these theories about why it would work. And so the biggest theories are that it affects the way, like you were mentioning, that your body deals with glucose and blood
Right.
sugar. So let's imagine that you graze all day on Monday, right? So you're always eating. Your blood sugar is always going to be kind of on the higher side because you're constantly eating. And then your insulin level, which is what your body uses to clear out the blood sugar, is going to be on the higher side because you're always eating.
Right.
Now, let's say the next day you don't eat until 5 p.m. So the whole day until 5 p.m., your blood sugar is actually going to be on the lower side of normal, and your
Right.
insulin is going to be on the lower side. It's only going to go up, around 5 when you eat. So for most of your day, your blood sugar and your insulin levels will be low. And we think that that's healthy. Obviously, if you have diabetes or something like that, you'd want to speak to your physician before doing this because you'd want to be careful about, your calories and your insulin and everything. But if you don't have diabetes, those people, adults, could do this. But there's other things too. And one of the exciting things that's come out of research, this is all recent stuff, is there are these longevity genes. There are these genes that actually help you live longer. And they have different names like sirtuins and AMPK. They're different names. But the idea is, and there's this whole science, this anti-aging science, and the idea is we want to turn on these longevity genes. We want to turn them so they work in our favor and make us live longer. And we think that fasting is one of the ways of turning these guys on.
Would these genes be something you would get from your parents?
So we all have them, which is what's cool
Oh,
about
we
this.
all
All
have
of
them.
us have, yeah, we
Okay.
all have this. And but the thing is that we want them active. We want these longevity genes as active as possible.
Oh, I see.
And,
Okay.
and so you and I have them, even if we're not trying, they're doing something to some extent, like every time you walk outside, you may be getting a little DNA damage, or you're exposed to things, you're getting a little DNA damage, and so your body fixes that. You're not getting cancer every day.
Right.
So your body has a way of healing itself. And it turns out that we could upregulate this. We could make it so your body heals itself even better.
Okay. What do you think? I know the life expectancy for people in the United States has been steadily going up since 1960. What do you think realistically people can expect to live, assuming they don't smoke, aren't obese, they try to eat right, get some exercise. What do you think is a good goal, a good age goal for most people these days?
So this is a hotly debated topic, and a lot of people feel. So we used to feel that that our bodies are sort of hardwired for a certain death date.
Right.
We're just
Yeah.
designed to die at a certain time. But we're starting to feel that that's less and less true, and the whole sort of concept of how we age, we think is wrong. We used to think of aging as sort of the gradual decay of the body. We just sort of lose one
Right.
thing after another. We just get frail and we die. But we're kind of rethinking how that works. And honestly, the upper limit of life we think is higher and higher. I mean, there are people that have lived to be over 120, and we think that it may very well be possible that a lot of people, or maybe even most people, assuming, like you said, they don't smoke and they behave well and they're not shot or hurt in accidents or get some infectious disease, things like that could always get you no matter what. I mean, anyone could be in a car accident, even if you're fasting.
True.
But, assuming that bad stuff like that doesn't happen, there's no reason why a lot of people can't live to be 100. But, the trick is that it's not just how long you live. It's also how healthy you are in those later years.
True. Right.
So, if you were to walk into a room of people and say, hey, if you could snap your fingers and live to 100, would you do it? A lot of people wouldn't. And the reason they wouldn't do it is because they're thinking of their parents or their grandparents that after age 70, they had one medical problem after another. They were frail, they had Alzheimer's, they were using a walker, they slept all day, they had pain all the time. So most people are thinking, why do I want to live longer if that's going to happen to me? So the trick isn't just living longer. The trick is also, if you could live longer, but let's say you live to be 100 and you're healthy until age 98, that's pretty good. That gives you a lot of extra healthy years. You could get to know your great grandkids. You could start a new career. You could pick up new hobbies. You could travel the world. You could do all kinds of stuff if you have extra healthy years.
Let me just hit one thing that's on your talking points. You mentioned COVID and mental health. How is that relating to your book at all, or is that just a side topic?
It is a topic that I talk about often, and depression specifically is in the book, and COVID is in the book, but I'm not sure, honestly, that I tied the two together in the book. But I'm delighted to discuss it.
Okay. Well, just give us a quick, how is COVID affecting people's mental health? I'm sure being locked in and locked down is not doing any good for most people's mental health.
Yes, and that is the truth. And so I do telemedicine regularly, and so I deal with a lot of people that are struggling with mental health issues. And we've seen depression and anxiety go off the charts. And if you look at even things like prescription use for antidepressant pills and anti-anxiety pills, they're just going crazy. So there's been this explosion of depression and anxiety. And we think it's directly related to COVID. And there's a couple reasons for this. I think one of the big ones is the quarantines and the isolation and the social distancing. For many people, that has a big emotional toll. It's keeping people away from their friends and family. It's keeping people away from their support system.
Yeah.
And so that's very difficult. And then, of course, on top of that, people are worried about their economic situation, if they'll keep their jobs or not. And maybe they know a neighbor who got COVID and died or was in the hospital, or maybe they're worried they'll get it themselves. And so you've got this combination of extra stress plus separation from your support system, separation from those who could help you. And so as a result, we're seeing a huge rise in depression and anxiety.
Doctor, we do have to wrap this up. Thank you so much for coming on. Quickly, do you have a website for your book, or just a personal website you want to give out so people can come see it?
Yeah, so the book is called Why Doctors Skip Breakfast. You can get it on Amazon, or the audiobook is available through Audible. Or you can visit me on GregoryCharlopMD.com, GregoryCharlopMD.com.
Super. Thank you for coming on the show. Thank you for sharing your book.